people cope with and overcome life's challenges. This is Life Transformations with Michael Hart, certified Christian counselor and director of Ottawa's Elam Counselling Services.
Hi, I'm Michael Hart, Director of Elam Counselling Services, a Christian counseling ministry in Ottawa. We provide professional counseling from a Christian perspective for individual couples and families. If you're not familiar with us, you can find out more about us at elamcounselingministry.com. Elam is spelled E-L-I-M, counseling with 2 L's, ministry.com. You can also call us at 613-699-1677. Again, 613-699-1677, and you're actually tuned into the right station, and you're listening to a show where chains are actually broken and life transformed. So stay tuned. With me in studio today is Melissa Wagat, as usual. Welcome, Melissa.
Hi, Michael.
Tell our listeners a little bit about what we have in store for today.
So today we're doing a show all about putting off procrastination and how if you're someone who maybe is a bit of a procrastinator, maybe to get some insights as to why you're doing that, and then hopefully break that.
Right. And we have been actually putting off this show for over a year.
We really have. So really the show is for Michael and I to overcome our own issues, to better prepare. And really, it is true. It's a little bit for us. But really, we want to look into why do people procrastinate? And I think for a lot of people, sometimes when you think about procrastination, I think of laziness. Is procrastination laziness?
Well, I think there's a difference, a major difference between procrastination and laziness. A person who is lazy doesn't want to do anything. They're just lying around on the couch and they're comfortable with just flipping channels all day, and they're okay with that. A person who suffers from procrastination is a person who actually wants to do something, know they should do something, but just can't get around for it. So they have very good intentions. They actually have a desire to better themselves. They are not comfortable with being couch potatoes. They want to achieve something in life. They want to do things that are on their agenda, but they just keep putting it off and putting it off. And I should also say too that we all procrastinate to some level, but for people who procrastinate, it becomes a major part of their lives, where it's like a trait that they have, where they have this tendency to just keep putting off things indefinitely.
So is there any statistics out there? You say we all procrastinate to some degree. Of what percentage of the population are actual procrastinators?
Well, interestingly, the percentage of people who procrastinate over the years seems to have been growing. Like in the 70s, it was actually slated at 5%, but recent studies show that about 20% of people claim to suffer from procrastination. Now, it's not known like if all of this 20% are chronic procrastinators, but these are people who from the study identify themselves as having a problem with procrastination. So I would say it's pretty high, like maybe 1 in 5 of us have a tendency to put off things that we know that we should do.
And so did that study indicate why there's been such a sharp increase in procrastination?
No, the study didn't say, but I think one of the links that they've made is to computer usage. And I think the studies talked about the fact that 50% of people who spend time online are procrastinators. So they seem to be, with the growth of the internet and with these different social media activities, people tend to be more occupied with these online activities and neglect important aspects of their lives.
And I think that's a good point. And it's a really easy distraction, because I think a lot of the things we procrastinate from, whether it's a project at work or a school paper, you need the internet often to get those things done for research or to use word processing programs. And that's your gateway to, as you say, all those social media outlets or videos, and you get down the rabbit hole and your project doesn't get done when you'd like it to.
So it's kind of a trap, right? Because the internet can be such a useful tool. So I guess all of us as parents who have kids in school or of the age where they're using the internet would understand the dilemma that we find ourselves in, because on one hand they need the internet to research and to do things, but once they open that that gateway to the internet, there are so many distractions and so many, as you say, rabbit holes that they can find themselves going down. And so a child, a student may go online with very good intention to start a research, but then there is a friend on Facebook that a message pops up, or there is an email that comes in the inbox that sends an alarm, and before you know it, they're down these rabbit holes where they're answering emails, they're talking with friends about more pleasurable things, and the homework isn't done, the test isn't studied for. And the same thing happened with adults, not just kids, because a lot of adults get caught up in this trap where they spend a lot of time on these social sites, and they know that they should be doing productive work.
So we just described there's some of the ways we procrastinate. What are some of the reasons why we procrastinate?
Well, one of the basic reasons is how our brains are wired. Our brains are wired for immediate things that we can see in the immediate. Like it was part of our survival instinct in long ago, where people had to think about the meal for today, the survival here and now. So a lot of time the things that people procrastinate are things that there is not an immediate urgency on. So for example, someone might know that there is a report due at the end of the month. The way our brain is wired, there is no urgency to that report that is due at the end of the month. And so if you don't have a good structure and a good way of doing things, the tendency is to leave that report until a few days before, when the brain actually kicks in to say, now this is an immediate concern, this report is due, and my boss is going to give me hell if I don't get around to that report.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other reasons why we procrastinate?
I think one of the other reasons people procrastinate is that there is a tendency that we all have to overestimate the time that we have left for any given things. There's a tendency for us to think that we have more time than we actually do, and so we know that the report is due, and we tell ourselves, oh yes, I can start it the week before it is due. But once we get into it, we realize this is just too much for us to do in 1 week, and so we turn in a quality of work that is not good enough. So that's one of the reasons, is that people underestimate time. But then there are other reasons as well. Sometimes people procrastinate out of fear. There might be underlying issues that is causing a person not to tackle a task. They might be feeling that I can't do a good enough job. Now, our brain is wired also to move us away from danger, to move us away from things that are unpleasant. So if there's a task that is onerous, that is burdensome, what the natural tendency will be to not do that and to do more pleasurable things like surfing the internet.
Absolutely. And you can always make that excuse that, it's productive because I'm learning something.
Yes.
But the problem is you're not learning or doing what you need to do.
So when we talked about earlier on about how the brain is wired, there is a verse in scriptures that kind of captures that. Proverbs 20 verse 4 says, sluggards do not plow in season, so at harvest time they look but find nothing. That is the New International Version. But in the English Standard Version it says, the sluggard does not plow in the autumn, and he will seek at harvest and have nothing. So here we have the picture here painted in the book of Proverbs, where it is telling us that the tendency is for us to think more about the harvest, like the pleasurable things, what we will have. But for someone who is a procrastinator, the connection is not made in the season before the harvest. So that if I need a harvest 5 years from now, I have to start sowing and plowing my fields before. So if I want to achieve big goals 10 years from now, 20 years from now, I can't wait until then to start thinking about it. I have to start sowing seeds from from years before the appointed time.
Are there any psychological reasons why people procrastinate?
Well, there have been studies that have been done, and one study was done by Steele in 1996 shows that there are 4 factors at the root of procrastination, and he has given each of these factors a letter so that it can be easily talked about and quantified. So the first factor is what he described as expectancy for succeeding at a given task. So that's the E. So if a person feels that a task is difficult, that they are not likely to succeed at that task, the tendency will be to procrastinate. Now, what he did was a study that looked at all the different literature that he could find, and what he came up with was these 4 common factors. And one of the common factors was E, as I said before, expectancy for succeeding. And this kind of makes sense if you think about it, because if you think you're going to fail at something or something is going to be difficult, it's not like, I'm ready to do this right now. Mm-hmm. For most people, it is like, I'll do that tomorrow, I'll do that next week, and then next week turns into next year, and it just keeps being put off.
And I think that also allows you to put blame in a different place, where if you do fail at that task that you were sure you were going to fail of, if you leave it till the night before, you can more easily blame the fact that, I didn't have enough time,
right.
versus it was me.
That's a very good point, Melissa, because so people will blame the time instead of themselves, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one way that people try to help themselves to feel better about failing, in that they subconsciously put off because they don't want to face the fact that this is really difficult for me. So if you have just joined us, you're listening to the Life Transformation Radio Show. I'm your host, Michael Hart of Elam Counselling Services. And with me in studio today, the other voice that you're hearing is that of Melissa Waggott. And we have been discussing putting off procrastination. So I just talked about the research that was done by Steele, in which he came up with four factors that were at the root of procrastination. And the first factor, I said, is represented by the letter E, which is expectancy for succeeding at a given task. Now, the second letter that he found from the research why people procrastinate has to do with the value of the task. A lot of time we procrastinate because we are not able to ascertain the value in the present for a future task. So if I use the scripture that I pointed to earlier on, I think I can explain this a little more clearly, what value really is. So for this person who is thinking of the harvest and want to have the harvest as spoken of in Proverbs 20 verse 4, that person is thinking about a long-term value. But what is not seen as valuable is the plowing in the present. Mm-hmm.
So and for picking the seeds and all that.
Right. All that hard work is seen as this is labor, this is hard. So if a person don't see the value in that, what they will do is to say, I don't really feel like plowing right now. I don't really feel like studying. It is just so hard work. So if there's not enough value, the tendency will be to procrastinate. But for someone who can get their mind to a place where they can start thinking of the long-term gain and to say there is actually value right now in me doing this task. So one of the ways to overcome procrastination is to try to ascertain value to what it is that you need to do at present. For students, what value is there in you studying for that maths test? Mm-hmm. And if they can't see the value, as some kids who have told me, I don't see the sense of learning, trigonometry or the sense of learning calculus or algebra. It just doesn't make sense to me. So there is no value in their eyes. Mm-hmm. Of course, they're going to keep putting off what is to be done.
And I think of the conversations over math homework saying, when will I ever use this in quote-unquote real life?
Absolutely. Yes.
And just shutting the book and moving on.
Yes. And the same thing happens in organizations as well. Like I think in other shows I have talked about a psychological state that is called learned helplessness, where people get to a stage, whether it be in a job or in striving after certain ambitions, where they just feel nothing I do will matter anymore. So if someone is at that stage where they're actually feeling that their efforts don't count for anything, of course they're going to procrastinate. What's the use? What's the value of making those phone calls? What's the value of sending those ads out to potential customers? Because their minds have been conditioned to say, I sent out so many ads and nothing happened. I wrote so many reports and I didn't get a promotion. So people who find themselves in that situation will have problem placing value on the task at hand.
So what other factors are left of the 4 that Steele described?
Right. So the other 2 factors, the fourth factor is represented by the letter D, and it's a person's need for immediate gratification, their sensitivity to the delay. Okay. So if a person is delaying, right, they have to have a reason why they're delaying. If they're sensitive to the fact that I am delaying right now and this is going to cost me so much in the future, if they're sensitive to that realization, they're less likely to procrastinate. But for someone who can see the benefit in having short-term pain for long-term gain or delayed gratification, if someone can see the benefit of doing that, then the tendency is for them to just keep delaying. And there are some people who are more wired to delay and to put things off. And then the other letter is the letter I, which deals with impulsiveness. And the research shows that there are some people who by nature are impulsive. And you and I talked earlier, Melissa, about people who might go online with very good intentions to write a book or to do a report, or students who went online to do their homework, but then there is a flash of a text, or there is a flash of some ad that pops up that advertises something that they really want. If this person is impulsive,
there you go, click.
Yes, they're going to click on that whatever it is that comes up.
And then the report's not getting done and the paper's not getting written. And then, as we talked about earlier, it's that snowball effect.
So I'll just quickly repeat the letters for the sake of the listeners. So the 4 factors that Steele came up with, that was at the root of procrastination, is E for expectation, the expectation of succeeding at the given task. And then there is V, is their value in the person's mind in doing the task. And then I talked about D, the person's sensitivity to its delay. Is the person likely to be swayed by immediate gratification instead of being sensitive to the fact that delaying this project or whatever it is costly? And then I is for impulsiveness, in which Steele found that a lot of times people who are impulsive also has a problem dealing with procrastination.
So I think many people can probably think about how if you procrastinate at work and you're not getting things done or not done well, or in school, you can see some tangible effects procrastination could have on someone's life, and maybe advancement in a career or in school or whatnot. Do you ever see impacts of procrastination on someone's health?
Well, I think it's some studies that have been done shows that procrastination produces a lot of stress hormones in a person's body. Because in the beginning you had asked me the difference between a person who is lazy and a person who procrastinates. A person who is lazy doesn't care. They're not under any stress. They're happy, just sleeping all day. They're in their realm.
Yeah. Their cortisol levels do not go up when they're stressed, because there is no stress.
There is no stress. A person who procrastinates, a person who clicks on those email that pops up and knowing that the report is due in a week, that person has very high level of stress hormone cortisol because they're thinking of the report all the time. They're in their back of their minds. They're thinking, oh, that report still has to be done. I need to get that done. Or a person who has long-term ambitions to better themselves might be thinking, I really should be applying for college. I really should be furthering my study. I really should be doing that degree. So there is a sense of there's a sense of tension and anxiety that person will have all the time. So while that whatever it is being put off.
Do you ever find people become addicted to that high a little bit in terms of that rush at the end and I got to get it done? And part of the difficulty in breaking procrastination is some people like that sense of chaos and stress.
I think what is happening for people who find themselves over and over in that situation, I don't think it's necessarily that they like the high of being in that situation, because to think of it, no one wants to be like last minute with everything where you're feeling like you're out of time or you're going to be late. But I think a lot of people find themselves in that situation because they make very common mistakes with goals. And I spoke about some of those mistakes earlier, such as overemphasizing the amount of time that they have, thinking that they have more time than they do. And so it's very important to understand that some of these miscalculations are at the root of procrastination.
So if people are listening and they want to put off procrastinating, I know that sounds kind of silly, but what kind of practical things could someone implement now to make the procrastination stop? And so that they can get that report done early and have time to spare at the end. What suggestions would you give?
All right, so there are a few things that can be done. And remember earlier I talked about the fact that our brain is wired for things that are pleasant, things that are safe. Our brain is wired to move away from things that are unpleasant. And I think the first thing that can be done if you have a task that is unpleasant but nevertheless needs to be done is to set up some kind of a structure as to when you intend to do that task, how you intend to do it. Break that task down into smaller tasks so that it doesn't become this big burden of thing that you have to get around to doing. Set up a structure, set up a plan. And by structure, I mean a way of doing things that is similar to what organizations have. Like in organizations, there are deadlines for doing things. Reports have to be done at a certain time, and people have to meet certain deadlines. However, with personal goals, what we find a lot of times people have very good ambitious things that they would like to do, but no structure as to how to get there. So setting a structure, someone who wants to write a book, for example, could set a structure to say, my writing time that I have committed to is that every day I'm going to write for 1 hour during as my lunchtime, or I am going to set aside a specific time after structure and commit to that time. A further structure could be writing out a plan that says the first chapter has to be written by such and such a date, the second chapter by such and such a date, and then stick to that plan. I think another thing that people can do when they're procrastinating is to get other people involved who can help to keep them accountable to that structure.
Yeah, someone maybe to check in. If April 1st is your day to get chapter 1 in, someone give you a call on April 1st to say, how's chapter 1? Let me see a copy.
Yes.
Because, it takes it out of that nebulous space that no one knows except me, and you can be held to account.
Absolutely. And that is why a lot of people in small business fail, because they don't have a structure where they have specific tasks. Okay, this is the time set aside for advertising. This is the time set aside to write my business plan. They just feel, okay, I have the money, I invest, and I'm in business. And then they realize that they don't have customers because they don't have the structure that bigger businesses have. So if you're listening today and you're going through issues that you realize are pertaining to procrastination, then I think it's very important for you to put these principles in place. There is one very important thing that also can be done, and I call it visiting your future self. And I think all of us have dreams and aspirations that we have in mind, but our mind cannot wrap itself around future things readily. We can think more about things that are in front of us, things that we can see and smell and, and touch. So when you think of future goals, our mind is making a disconnect because it's myself at 50 and I need retirement. What does retirement savings, what does that look like? You can't think of that clearly when you're in your 50s, in your 20s, sorry. But what can be done is visit your future self. See yourself as you would like to be 20 years from now. Close your eyes and imagine what that would be like to have the things that you plan to achieve. Go and find pictures of places that you would like to visit, so that your mind can wrap itself around that trip to Europe or that trip to this exotic part in the world that you plan to go to, and make it tangible. Imagine being there. Imagine feeling your feet in the sand of the seashore of this dream vacation that you plan to. And when you begin to do that, something kicks in your mind that say it's more real and that it's possible. And so a lot of people, by using this strategy, are able to move forward.
Yeah, what I'm hearing through both of those tips is that specificity and being really specific about what you want and how you want to do it is really key.
Yes.
Are there any other tips that you can share?
I think one last tip that I'll share here is that there are research that has been done that shows that our determination is like a muscle. And that if you don't use your determination, you end up becoming very weak-willed.
So because there's not a gym for determination, there's not an exercise machine, at least that I'm aware of, that's been built yet. How do you exercise the determination muscle?
All right. So it basically by forcing yourself to do things that you know that you don't want to do. It can be simple things, right, at first. Like you have bigger goals, but you can start with very simple things by saying, okay, right now I don't feel to go for a walk. I know that I need to exercise, but I'm going to do it anyway. I know I should call my parents and I keep putting it off. I'm going to do it anyway. So begin to exercise that will to do things that you tend to put off, small things. And as you do that, you will find that the willpower to do the bigger things will also become more natural. There are several more things I could share about this, but I realize that we're out of time. And I think maybe if you need more information, you can call me at 613-699-1677, and I would love to walk with you through this. Thank you very much for being here with us today, Melissa.
I'm glad we got around to this.
Absolutely. So it was about time, and I've been procrastinating wrapping up this show, and I'm seeing signals from my producer. So until next time, this is your host, Michael Hart of Elim Counselling Services. Thank you very much for listening to this show, and praying that God would bless you in all your relationships and keep you sound in mind and pure in heart.